Thank you. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Well, yesterday was my birthday. Hold on, it's not my real birthday. Honestly, I don't know when I was born. When I started working on this book, I called my mom on the phone because, I just want to find as much information as I could in my childhood. And I said, Mom, these Americans are so obsessed with birthdays. Because everyone kept asking me, and who cares? And I asked her, I said, just think, really think so hard. And remember the day that I was born. And it's so expensive to call Somalia. It's 20 minutes, $20. So I'm like, Mom, come on. And she said, it was hot day, humid. Somalia is like Arizona. It's hot all the time. So you never know. So I picked June 20th because June 20th is World Refugee Day. I was in Washington, D.C., believe it or not, and I was sitting with Senator Angus King, Shirley Bingrey, and actually several other senators yesterday speaking on behalf of refugees and encouraging them to support funding and restore American leadership for refugees and the most vulnerable. Yes. However, I never wanted to be a refugee. No one in this world chooses to be a refugee, honestly, no one. It's something that happens. You get kicked out by a conflict. And this is where my story comes. And I will talk a little bit about the theme, wonder. But when I was 5 years old, Somalia's civil war begins and things fall apart. Militias come and the houses are looted and we lost our house that way. My mother, who is a very strong nomadic woman, who grew up herding goats and cows, walking several hundred miles. And this is something that is unbelievable. She has never known that she lived in a country called Somalia until she was really 17 years old. Wow. She didn't care. The nature, the borders, things like that didn't exist in her world. There were many times she wandered into Ethiopia and they kicked her back and she was like, what's going on here? She comes from deep southern Somalia, really pretty, Somalia is semi-desert. We have the equator. But in where my mom and my dad come from, Somalia, the Somalis are tribal. So she belongs to the tribe that, love farming and stuff like that. So she grew up moving around with the camels and the goats. So wherever the sun sets, that's where they sleep. Wherever the clouds are, that's where they go to find watering and stuff. So she met my dad in this, walk while they were doing. And then that's how they started dating and they got together and the wedding happens. And the moment their wedding happens, Somalia's worst famine and drought hit Somalia in 1977. This time we were still a country. There was a government. But then because of that, their animals got wiped out. Now they have to walk to some place where they can find work. Now they came to the city, Mogadishu, which had more nightclubs than mosques. Because Somalis are 100% Muslim. But at the time, we were a moderate Muslim, meaning women didn't cover their hair. There was a lot of music and dancing, and Somalia's musicians were going out in the world for competitions. They brought medals and prizes back home. And it was something that was encouraged. And my dad found a job playing basketball because he was tall and he was athletic. So this way he was really making pretty good money. And they found a place to live and they got a house. And my mother was frustrated and angry because the city life is not the life that she expected. What I mean by that is, in the nomadic life, she was a very strong young woman. She could walk everywhere. But in the city life, the woman, especially when you're a wife, you have to do, the housekeeping is your job. And the man is the one who goes out doing the work. So she was like stuck in this house. She had, I have an older brother. So he was the first who came out, and I was next. And I remember, well, I don't remember a lot, but I remember when I was, before the war, happened, our dad walking into the house, and that was my favorite moment, because he came back every Friday from training, and he would carry me on his shoulders, and we would walk around town. Mogadishu has a gorgeous Indian Ocean, really warm, and there are theaters and movies. And he would take us to the snack bars. Life had really been so amazing. We were a middle-class family. We didn't have a TV or fridge or anything like that, but we had food, and we had a place to live. And the only time that I cried was when my brother stole my snacks. But then what happens one Sunday in 1991 was something that, it's like your tears run out. It's like we lost our house, we had to move, and we walked 250 miles for safety, and it was Mom who took care of us. Dad said goodbye. I cannot be with you. It was not, he hated us. There's a chapter in my book called The City of Women and Children. And because they were killing men, they only spared women and children. So that's why our mom, my mother, was sticking with us. Coming back to the theme, wonder. So this is where it begins. In December 1992, American Marines land in Mogadishu. Why? Because New York Times had published pictures of starving children. 7 million people were starving. It was the worst humanitarian crisis that was happening, and it's only 2 years in the Civil War. And now we have the drought, and somehow President Bush Sr. decided to intervene and said, let's just provide humanitarian assistance. But why did the Marines come? The Marines came because the Somali militias were not letting the humanitarian assistance to arrive. They would steal everything, and they would block everything. But the Marines arrived, and they kicked them out of the streets. So this was where the wonder comes, right? Because I'm looking at this right now. It's a foreign army that I have never known of, didn't exist in my world, pushing a Somali away from me so that I could eat. And now, there was a blonde woman in the military uniform. She was walking around, shaking hands with anyone who wanted to. But also she walked into the houses searching for weapons, and there were Humvees that followed her all over the place. And this was the first encounter that I ever had, and my eyes were fixated on this giant robot. It's like, they don't look like us. And I'm standing here, my mother is holding so tight onto my arm, because she herself is like, what is this skinless person? What is going on here? And she calls them skinless because, unless you have if you don't have a dark skin, that means the dark skin was peeled off from you. And now it's, she's talking. There's a conversation going on here. She doesn't have a weapon on her, but the Humvees are out there, and the military is pointing their gun. The M16 upwards is something unusual, because the Somali militias usually point their guns at your head to threaten you. And now I just want to free myself from my mother, run around and check on these things, and my mother is holding on to me for safety, because she really hasn't gotten to the point where these people are safe, right? And now she pulls out some snacks or something like that, gives it to me, and I'm standing here. And remember, this is the starving moment. My sister just died from starvation. She couldn't get milk. And here's some tasty food that this arm was stretching out to me. And my mother has no idea what to do. I have no idea what to do either. But I went for it. And now my mother tells me, nope, it's pork, right? Well, we don't eat pork. But the moment I heard pork, I just stepped back. So it just shows you, it's so wonderful how when we ate leaves from the trees and anything else to keep us alive and breathing, but when this tasty food comes, now we're suspicious of it becoming a pork. And that's where it all begins. Now, The 2 helicopters come down. American Marines were kicked out of the city by the Somali militias because President Bush realized, well, we didn't go there to really go to war. But now if these Somalis are not, if there's a part of Somalia that says, we don't want you, I mean, let them kill their own people. So this way they pulled out, they left. And that's the moment when they left, I started walking around, going to the movie theater, memorizing English sentences from Arnold Schwarzenegger, another immigrant, on the commandos and the Terminators. And now we're acting on scenes from the movies and walking like the Marines and that we had met in the city. And my Americanization sort of grew up, and every single day it was about the wonder. Who are these people? Why did they come to help us? Why? And then the satellites. And my learning, my education had really grown in a point where one day I get into an argument with my mom, and I would say, all the moving stars are, everything that you see in the sky that's moving, it's not a star. Some of them are satellites. And she would tell me, shut up. And then I would say, Mom, what does heaven look like in terms of in Islam? Can you describe it? Oh yeah, there's a river of milk, a river of honey, gorgeous flowers, trees, you could fly, there's a horse, there's all of this. And I'm like, that looks like America. I mean, I was saying as a joke, but seriously, just watch the movies. Watch one of those commandos or the Terminators when Arnold Schwarzenegger has breakfast with his daughter with the orange juice, the mall where he chases down the thugs, everything. And I said, maybe this is the heaven on planet Earth that I really want to experience at some point. But there's one strength that I did not know that I had in me, which was storytelling and really learning things so fast. So in this case, I was able, within 2 years, to put together English phrases. 90% of those phrases were swear words and curse words. And this is where the misconception comes in, because I thought that every American swears like Arnold Schwarzenegger. The F word, the S word. And I still regret when I first met my sponsoring family who live in Yarmouth, Maine, when they heard my story. I would email them full of F words. I know, I'm so sorry, I apologize. But that was the music that came to us with this hip hop music full of all these, words. And I thought everybody listens to hip hop. That's what I thought. And these action movies, they gave me the wrong image of America. I don't regret. I learned from it. But then I remember her name is Sharon and Gib, professors. They teach at the University of New Hampshire, but they live in Yarmouth, Maine. And these people don't swear. And I'm reading a long email that they sent back describing the cat, the dogs, the snow, and chickens, and horse, everything else in their life, but there's no one single word that I like. I mean, why can't she say the fucking horse or something like that? I know. Well, excuse my French, but I was really wondering what in the world is going on here. I mean, where is that thing that you learn from movies? And then I have really realized that, oh man, English is an ocean. You need to learn the good way to say things and then the bad way to say things. And then that way I got into books and several other movies. Well, Eddie Murphy is crazy. I shouldn't have watched him. I don't understand his English, actually. Well, I do these days, but back at the time, it was I don't know, it sounded like something else. So fast, so quick. Arnold Schwarzenegger was awesome. I would be back. It was so easy. So I made this family through my journalism. And what I mean by journalism, I'm not a professional journalist. But in Somalia, when 2006, I turned 20, and Somalia has shifted from a warlord or warmonger era into an Islamist era. Because of America's involvement in Afghanistan and Iraq, we had an influx of terrorists that came to the country and they ran over everything. They bombed the movie theater that I had learned English from. And then on a giant speakers on the streets of Mogadishu, they told us music is a crime, dancing is a crime, speaking English is a crime. If you are found doing anything beyond the norms of this, the things that they have introduced, you could be, they could kill you. I did not really, somehow, I was like, I don't want my freedom to be taken by these people. So this young woman I was dating at the time, and I went into the ocean to have a good time, because I was going to the ocean. I was born in this city. And then these guys came out of nowhere and they started beating me for being with a woman. They beat me so bad, and they separated us. They took her into a separate room, and they took me into another room. And what they did was they quizzed me in Quran. And the Quran is the Islamic teaching. It's 114 chapters. It's over 600 pages. Gladly, I was able to memorize the whole Quran through the years. I don't want to give you the whole story in the book, but there's a whole description in the book. I talk about learning Quran from the madrasa. And that day, that saved me. 3 questions they asked, I answered directly, and then they said, well, we don't have to kill this guy, but maybe we have to brainwash him. And they called me to come next day for a certain training, and I skipped. I never showed up. And they were coming after me, and now I go into hiding. And America sponsors African troops. Now the African troops come, and these terrorists were pushed out of the city. And now what happened is, one American reporter comes to Mogadishu taking pictures, and I'm bare feet. Our house was gone. I separated from my mother 3 days ago. I can't find her. Now I'm walking the streets, and I see this white guy on top of the roof. Remember, the last time I saw an American was that woman in the uniform I talked about earlier. Stretched out some things. But when I met Paul Solopek, he's a two-wise Pulitzer Prize winner, and he was taking pictures. And I shouted in my best slang that I could, learned from Hollywood movies. Hey, what's up, man? And he loved it. So he invited me, and he and I, before we started talking, he said, "You want hot or cold?" And he had a Pepsi Cola on one hand and a kettle of tea on the other hand. Why would I go for the kettle of tea? I said, "That." So he gave me the Pepsi Cola, and I drank it. And he said, "Do you want one more?" I said, "I want a lot." So he brought out 3 more, and he said, "Well, you can drink one and you can take some home." I said, "What are you talking about?" So I drank the whole thing there. And I talked to him that day, first time expressing myself in English after many years of seeing the Marines. And this is the first time ever that I'm really sort of practicing my English with this American. English learned from movies, and it worked very well. He took down everything that I said and published on a newspaper and talked to NPR, and NPR realized that I was a voice in Mogadishu, and that's how I ended up telling stories on a series called The Story in North Carolina. So they collected all my stories, message from Mogadishu, and I described every single day what was happening, my life, my family. And that way, this family in Yarmouth heard my story, and they jumped in. They said, "We're happy to sponsor you." So I got out, came to Kenya, became a refugee. I went to the US Embassy. We tried student visa. It didn't work out. It didn't work out because as a refugee, you're never supposed to come to this country as a student. You have to have a passport and nationality of other countries. In Somalia, I didn't bring any documents. So in Kenya, I was born on January 1st, like every other refugee. Yes. January 1st, on my Facebook, I have over 700 birthdays, to shout out. So when I came to the US, you can go to This American Life episode, Abdi and the Golden Ticket, to find out the struggle that I came to this country. But I only don't have much time to explain everything. But I won the lottery. For those of you who know the diversity lottery that the president is trying to stop these days, that's how I got to this country. I would have never gotten into this country in any other way. My brother is a refugee for 16 years, and he was denied to come to the US. And to me, it would be the same thing, or it might take 10 years. I won the lottery, and I fought for it. I went to the embassy several times, proving that I'm not a terrorist. I mean, why would you tag every Somali young man as terrorist? So I, had to explain my stories and the support of everyone that I had. Anyways, I landed in the fall of 2014 in Boston, and I describe in this book the moment that I landed. And I was wondering if gravity was the same in America. I was wondering if every American looked like Arnold Schwarzenegger at the airport. I was wondering if people would start swearing around. This is just 2014, August 11. And this is a day after Michael Brown, a young black man, was killed in Missouri. This Black Lives Matter was emerging. And in Boston, there was all the breaking news that you can see, and the protest that was happening. And also, again, I was wondering what in the world is going on in the US? Why do these streets look like, Mogadishu? And again, Sharon came, drove all the way to Boston, and they picked me up. They're driving me to Yarmouth, midnight. And what can you see on 95? Literally nothing. You can only see the other cars coming this way. And I'm like, where's Manhattan? Where's Las Vegas? Where are you taking me? Well, I was really wondering, how are you going to live with this family? And my greatest fear was the dog that they talked about. Lacey, you're going to love her. She's awesome, And I'm like, I don't know. And then themselves, they were like, what is he going to be like? How's he going to do in the house? Will he be normal? Will he just have a meltdown? So we were driving, and this is what was going on in their minds. And they will explain to me later, 3 years later. And I will explain to them, what was going on in my mind. I was like, I don't know, maybe I got kidnapped or whatever. And for those of you who know what Yarmouth looks like, it's a small of 6,000 people, no buses, no taxis, like you don't see anything. And it's a farmhouse where I came. So waking up in the morning was the scariest thing. Trees, animals, walk up, there's a river there, and then in every 10 minutes, there's one car going that way, and there's another car going this way, and people are waving and smiling, and I'm like, I'm in a shock right now. And I would like to conclude by saying one of the craziest things was, of course, after learning how the microwave works, the dishwasher and everything, I messed up with the microwave one day. They asked me to build in 5 minutes. It was 1 hour. I don't know why I was standing there and watching this thing. I had a feeling, don't touch it as long as it's going. It's like it's gonna explode or something like that. So they had really rough time with me. But so I learned. And then, 2 weeks in Yarmouth, this family were loading up things in the back of the truck, Sharon and Gib and Natalia and Morgan. And now they're like, we're off to camping, Abdi. So this is, you have the whole house to yourself, take care of the cats, don't eat the cat food, don't eat the dog food. This is where you can eat. I know, this is where you can eat, this is where you can do, they're like, Sharon is like very careful. They don't, I don't have to blow this house. So they have to be very careful. Don't use the microwave, darn. However, and I was like standing, helping them load things out. I'm like, so where are you going? Camping. What do you mean by camping? How does that work? It's like, see these books, snacks. This is what we're gonna do. We'll build a tent and sit by the lake or whatever, we're gonna read. If you want to join us, you're welcome, but maybe you can join us next. And I said, what you just described looks like a refugee life. Who in the world lives? Why would you leave this house of 6 rooms, gorgeous windows, a basement, and now you want to expose yourself to the animals and mosquitoes? And maybe they're mocking us, refugees. And I said, no, you're more than welcome, but I'm not going anywhere. I just, I want to be in this house and sort of explore and enjoy everything. I promise I'm not going to use the microwave. So these days I tour, and everywhere that I go, it's really a huge experience. Being in the capital, one of the most powerful places in the whole world, and walking from a senator's room to it's not a privilege. I don't know what to call it. It's an honor. It's like, here I am. I'm able to meet one of the most powerful people in the whole world. And then I remember in Kenya, when a member of parliament is crossing the street, they have to kick us out of the street. It's like you have to hide, or something like that. And here we are. I was just meeting a senator saying, Mr. Senator, you need to sign this thing. You need to do this thing. And it's really privileged. And one of the things was like in Maine, we have rallies and stuff like that. And I'm usually up front. Not because I'm angry, but because I'm really wondering, look at this life. You know, I remember one day I got a sign protesting against this president and the policies and the travel ban. Because being a Muslim, being a Somali, being a refugee, being an immigrant, that's everything that, you know, they hate. And there I was up front. And then I'm like really looking at myself and I'm saying, this is the America that I love. I could have never done this in Russia, in China, in Kenya, in Somalia, where I come from, in Djibouti. Nowhere else in the world is this possible. So I feel empowered. I feel my voice has been heard. I feel that I'm being appreciated. I feel that even within the Somalis, it's tribal. Somehow they look you down because of your tribe. But here in the US, it's who you are. It's what you can make. So I feel privileged, and I'm really want to tell you, I'm not disappointed if you're going to ask me that question. I feel like we're doing a good job. Questions? Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was incredibly powerful.
Yeah.